Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next candidate. Oh, there she is. Where'd she go? Miss Colleen Gibney-Treleaven.
Does the color purple mean anything to you? It used to be the color of fabric by an emperor or senior magistrate in ancient Rome or Byzantium. That color and what it means is how I think of my grandmothers, royalty. Hi, I am Colleen Gibney-Treleaven, and welcome to my Masterworks of 2017. I recollect when I was around 10 years old, my grandmother, Chris Morrissey, won the Diamond Jubilee Medal. I remember thinking the Queen was going to show up, and it was going to be in a massive ballroom. It turned out to be in a small, moldy-smelling Legion. At least the cake was good, but that's not the point of this introduction. Before this award, I could never fully grasp what my grandmothers did as people, beyond being grandmothers to me. Now fast forward to around grade 8. It was not until I did a school project that I could fully understand and appreciate my grandmothers. Also, since my grandmother Bridget Call passed away in February of 2016, this project was a small tribute to her. It was then that I really grasped what they did and how many lives they changed. So when it came time to pick my Masterworks project, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I'm going to give you a summary of my grandmother's lives so you can understand why it is important for me to tell their story. I have 2 adopted grandmothers. Their names are Chris Morrissey and Bridget Call. They have a very interesting life story. They were nuns in the Catholic Church, and that gave them the opportunity to work in missions overseas. They met each other and fell in love, which, of course, caused them to have to leave the convent. Chris was already a Canadian citizen, but Bridget had a dual citizenship to the USA and Ireland. Chris tried to sponsor Bridget to get her citizenship to Canada, but sponsoring another person as a same-sex partner was not a possibility. They fought so Bridget could get her citizenship, and in the process, they helped Canadian laws change. They made 2 organizations called Legit and Rainbow Refugee, so that it makes it easier for other couples to sponsor each other. They are so inspiring to me and so many other people. So to tell this story, I had to learn how to do a lot of things. I had to find a hook to interest the reader, had to do some research on how to write and produce a book. Then I had to conduct an interview and transcript it. Once that was over, I actually had to write the story. Then I chose photos to go in the book. Now I will walk you through my process. When the time came around, I really didn't know how to write a book, never mind a biography. In my first Masterworks meeting with my advisors, Nina Wynnum, a writer for CBC, Jennifer Hendrickson, my internal advisor, Nell Dombro May-Rink, and Jessie Gottfried, who are both students, gave me some advice and tools on how to start writing a book. How to find a hook. They told me to start with a hook. A hook needs to be catchy and intriguing in order to interest the reader. I chose a story about when my grandma Chris got the Diamond Jubilee Medal back in 2010. The story that I told you at the beginning, because that was the day that I really realized what my grandmothers had done for people. In my presentation, I will focus on the process I went through to tell the story. I will also read an excerpt from my book to give you more details. To start, I had to do an interview. They told me to use a voice recording app to record her voice with and take notes so how I would have the information to go back to. My advisor, Nina, told me about different recording apps, and she also gave me great advice on how to start and how to conduct an interview, such as, don't always jump to the next question. There may be some interesting leads to new and different questions. Focus on the why and how did you feel questions. I used those why and how did you feel questions and they gave in my interview, and they gave really big depth to my inquiries. I had all the tools to do an interview. All I needed was to actually do the interview. I figured writing questions was a good place to start. I had around 7 questions to ask. Some were about Chris's childhood in Prince George, how did her and Bridget meet, and how Rainbow Refugee was formed. after I recorded the interview, I did something super fun called transcripting, which took a very long time. For those of you who don't know what transcripting is, it is a written or printed version of a material originally presented in another medium. I took the recording and changed every word spoken from a 48-minute interview into text. That includes the and hahs and everything else in between. I found it pretty easy after I transcribed it to translate the text that I wrote into my biography. Sounds fun, right? I got 4 chapters from my interview, but I needed a few more chapters. So I had to conduct another interview. Again, I recorded the interview, but this time I just didn't transcript it. I didn't have the time. So I took notes instead. I wrote those chapters and edited them with Jen. I needed chapters on my grandma Bridget, so I looked at slides and scripts from her celebration of life. Once I got all that information together, I put it into paragraphs. After I finished all my writing, my advisors and I realized that I did not have enough material to create a whole book with, but a photo book is the kind of thing that would be quite suitable. So I made a photo book. But first I had to learn how to use Photolab and pick my photos. Yay! So here it is, and I'd like to read you an excerpt. Bridget in a convent in Albany, New York. They were pretty good friends, and they always hung out together. Bridget went back to Ireland for a few weeks to visit family. When she had returned, she had learned her mother had passed away, when she was dealing with the death of her mother 2 weeks after her father passed away. This was, of course, very hard to deal with. She got many letters from members of the church saying how God made it so that her parents could be in heaven in peace together, and that they were happy together in heaven. She saw Chris a little bit later, and she asked her how she was doing. Bridget said, "Everyone told me how it was God's will for them, but no one really asked me how I was doing." This showed Bridget that Chris understood and cared about her feelings. And this is the day, they say, is the day that they fell in love. Throughout their lives, they've celebrated this day as their anniversary. In 1991, Chris and Bridget formed Legit. Legit is an association that helps other same-sex couples with the immigration process. They worked for years and finally influenced a change in the Immigration Act. They changed it so that same-sex partners could be considered family. It helped to bring LGBTQIA+ people who are in dangerous or deadly situations in their home countries, or helps them reunite with loved ones in Canada. They wanted to form another organization in 2000 to help people get lawyers and legal aid. In 2011, the Minister of Immigration wanted them to start a pilot program that would help people being persecuted out of their country because of their sexual orientation or HIV status and immigrate to Canada. The program would help people for the first 12 months to find a place to live, work, figure out financial things, and English class if they needed it. Okay, so fast forward around 2002. They went to this hairdresser named Janice. Now this does not seem very important, but it is, so hold on. They became pretty good friends with this, she's there. They became pretty good friends with this hairdresser, and she had a partner named Kate, and Janice was pregnant. They had a baby shower, and at the baby shower, they asked Chris and Bridget to be their child's honorary grandmothers. Because Kate's parents had passed away before I was born, and Janice's mom lived in Ontario, and her father passed away when she was 7. On December 18th, 2002, Chris and Bridget got home and checked their voicemail, and a baby girl had been born. This baby girl's name was Colleen. Me! They hopped in the car and went to the hospital. When they first met me, Bridget was afraid to hold me because she thought she might drop me. This started a long relationship with our two families. They're the best grandmothers I could ever wish for. As happy as I was with my photo book, there are other ways to tell someone's story. My advisors suggested I write a magazine article, which is a different style of writing, and it is easier to put out into the world. By that, I mean you can publish it electronically, or you can make a hard copy of it. Jesse suggested I read some magazines and take notes on what made them interesting. I read Rock Sound, a music magazine, and Alternative Press, another music magazine. I noticed that they used colorful language to describe the person, and all of the photos had a caption or a description of the person underneath. A story, unlike my biography, was not written in chronological order. They also had something called pulled quotes, where they wrote important information. The layout of text was also in shorter, digestible blocks instead of long paragraphs. Photos help tell the story. They provide images of content in the article to assist your imagination. I had to choose 7 photos that went along with the paragraphs in the story, and I went through a whole bunch of photos that my family had in the house and found some that they wanted to use. Some of the photos were of Bridget and Chris in their teenage years, a few from Chile and the convent, and some of them were from when they just came to Canada. And one of the photos with the 2 of them marching in the Pride Parade. As an example, instead of 2 big paragraphs about Chris's youth and then another one about Bridget's, I combined them together to make a smaller paragraph that goes over both subjects. I also broke it into shorter digestible pieces that were easier to read, and I titled each section with a little more pizzazz to generate interest. After speaking to Nina, I learned some things about the layout of magazine articles. Don't crop a photo at the joint like a knee. Go above or below. If you crop at a joint, it makes the person feel uncomfortable. I never really noticed that until Nina pointed it out. White space is good, don't cram. If a photo has someone looking off-center, place it so that they are looking onto the page. So if you look at this example, the first photo is incorrect. It just doesn't look right. It's very unsettling. This other photo is correct, and it looks better on the page than the other one. We had a magazine article. We just needed to lay it out in the format for a magazine article. Nina had some templates for magazine articles that she sent to Jen and I. We looked for others to find more choices. We finally decided on a newsletter template from Word. Over a couple lunch hours, we put the photos into the template. As projects go, there are bumps in the road along the way. Jen and I ran into a few with the formatting program that we were using. One of the problems were with inserting photos into the format. We spent about half an hour on Jen's computer trying to figure out how to get the photos from Google Docs into Word. We asked Charlotte and Kristen with help with the program, and they both figured it out in 5 minutes. Finally, it was complete. So here it is, the condensed story in 4 pages. You can pick up a copy in the foyer or over there after the presentation. So this is my title for my magazine article. You see how I have a hook as my title to intrigue the reader? On a continuation of this page, I have a pull-out quote of a timeline to give the reader a brief summary of what happened. Here I have a condensed paragraph about their childhoods and youth with photos to go along with it. On this one, I have a pull-out quote saying, "There is no category stating same-sex couples to the government, so the government sent back no such category. This struck a chord for them and started their fight for immigration." On this next page, I put my quote from my interview with Earl Pang. It says, "Because of Legit's help, my application only took 6 months to process because we had all the necessary documents and paperwork to build a solid case. Everything worked out smoothly." On a continuation of this page, I wrote information about Legit and Rainbow Refugee, and I also put the links to their websites. Finally, I finished with this page on how my parents met my grandmothers. In the end of my journey, I have decided to describe my grandmothers in 5 words. Those words are caring, amazing, prideful, proud, and purple. They've affected the way I see the world because they help someone no matter the color of their skin, their nationality, or sexual orientation without judgment. It was also not just a job that ended at 5. They lived and breathed what they did 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have changed Canadian immigration and has helped and positively affected people's lives. I would like to thank everyone who helped me with this project. My advisors for this project, Jennifer Hendrickson, for being there with endless support and encouragement and technical support. Nina Winham for advice about how to make everything look lovely. Jessie Gottfried and Nell Dornbell-Mabrink for giving me advice on how to put my writing into the world. My parents for being there with photos, information, and snacks and help on the very long nights. My friends and family for listening to me talk about my Masterworks over and over and over and over again. My class for all your support and being there with encouragement when I needed it the most. Last but definitely not least, Chris Morrissey, my amazing grandmother. Thank you for all the information and help on this project and for attending today. And the audience, thank you for coming today.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to announce that Colleen Gibney-Treleaven has now completed all the requirements of IPS Masterworks.